Hey, we need to start.
Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to the CI SummitFX. The fourth day, we are having a session on emerging talent scenarios in the new normal. The speakers are Miss Kranti Sharma, Head of Studio Films and Episodic, Visual Effects, Technical India, Miss Delna Damodiwala, Head of HR and Talent Acquisitions, DNEG, Mr. Jimmy Kuriakos, Head HR Technicolor, Mr. Saurabh Dalmia, Head of Business Development Anybrain. We also have Mr. Maurice Patel, Senior Director in Industry Strategies and Marketing, M&E, Autodesk. Over to you, Ms. Kranti.
Karan, thank you so much. Oh, suddenly the feedback is gone, which is good for our sessions. Okay, great. I would like to welcome all of you on my panel this morning. Thank you for joining, and it's such a pleasure that we will get to interact with you during these times. I think the most queries are for the talent team, and what are you thinking? What is going to be the future? So I think the session is going to be very, very meaningful for our audience. I'll just run through a quick little brief what we had shared on the group. Given the disruption in the AVGC industry, talent has been challenged to continue AVGC production in most unusual circumstances. A highly interactive and iterative industry that needs a collaborative space has been scattered into hundreds of homes, as we all know, and we still have a huge demand to continue business as usual, but obvious. The industry's top talent managers and team members we have, or leaders, we have here on this platform to reflect on the paradigm and the consequences and emerging trends in future talent hiring, training, engagement, and I think we will discuss more as we go along. Morris, thank you for joining us, and I think this is really an honor for you. I think we will ask the first question from you, Morris. Understanding because you're not from talent, but we would like to hear your thoughts. Autodesk has done a lot of things already during this pandemic. What else you think is Autodesk going to be doing for our workforce, which is currently sitting at home and wanting to engage more in terms of learning?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge was that, things changed very, very rapidly and quite dramatically. And some companies were more prepared than others. At Autodesk, we were able to move to working virtually. Pretty much we shut all our offices down, everyone home, and we were up at 100%, close to 100% productivity within 24 hours. But it's not always the case, so that's that easy to do. On our customers, amongst our customers, so we serve customers across a broad range of industries, from visual effects to gaming. I think gaming companies were more adapted to the changes. They were already more highly virtualized. But in terms of what we tried to do, there were several initiatives we launched as COVID really started to sink in. The first one was, how do we help our customers virtualize their workplace? Not everyone knew how to virtualize their workplace, so that they could actually enable people to remote from home. Like, how do you run our software in virtual environments? So we initiated programs to help our customers do this, to virtualize the workstations, access data which might be stored within the facility but from home. We also initiated programs with some of the customers. That we have a program called Flow, which assists furloughed employees from, obviously as production was hit. Companies couldn't necessarily afford to keep all their employees on staff, and so we had programs to assist with that. And thirdly, we ourselves launched low-cost versions of our software, the indie version, as well as online training to help people who wouldn't be working for companies and have access to our software to be able to continue to refine their skills and continue to learn. And these are just a few of the things that we've done. We introduced, different payment terms to help, with cash flow problems, especially with very small businesses. We introduced free access to a lot of our cloud services, because as you were mentioning, how do you collaborate? Well, a lot of the collaboration uses products like Shotgun, which is an Autodesk product, which allows people to review and approve what the work that they're doing online, and all this is a series of cloud products like that enable collaboration. We provided access to that for free for an extended period of time, and so yeah, so between helping our customers virtualize, giving them access to the software, helping them keep their skills trained, and then working with individual customers to see what we can do to help them in these situations, as well as giving easy access software to artists around the world so that they can continue to track their skills.
Morris, that's quite interesting, and I would like to come back to you. We have to go on mute. Yeah, just one person can speak at a time, looks like here today. Yeah, so I'll probably would like to come back to you for your thoughts on more of education and online programming. Before that, maybe we can hear the other panel members as well. Some interesting thoughts, Morris, that you've shared, and what Autodesk is doing during this pandemic time. And I think we have a lot more to look forward for. So we will discuss more during this session. Jimmy, I would like to hear your thoughts. The pandemic has really forced us to, question so many of fundamentals of our day-to-day lives. It has forced us to question our long-standing habits, routines, and values, right, in both our personal and working lives. So, do you think we were prepared for such a major disruption? And I'm sure we were not prepared, but how we can prepare ourselves for the future, and what else do you think we need to do?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me as part of this panel discussion. It's a very broad question, but to start with, I guess none in the world were prepared for a change of this nature, because it is not only an impact which is at a level which we can foresee. I think we are dealing with more what we call the unknown. And the scale of the impact of COVID has been quite vast and still going on. Many times such situations when businesses face, we at least have a visibility when this might come to normalcy. But I guess COVID has raised a lot of questions around when this will and how we will go back, whether we will even go back to our normal ways of functioning. I fundamentally feel that every organization have created their own sort of continuity plans to ensure that they sustain themselves. But I can assure you that this is unprecedented and beyond comprehension, to be more precise. There are many things. In fact, what has really brought to us brought to us as a reflection is the health of people. I guess nothing more has become important. I think something which has challenged the life, a real existence of life is under question. So I guess that's the fundamental level we need to start engaging in. And I'm sure every organization is doing their bit in managing the health and wellness of people. But I guess this is going to take it to a next paradigm shift, because we really do not know whether it will take the next 6 months to 1 year or 2 years to really stabilize where we are. So I really feel that health is going to be the top priority, both for the individual, both for the team, as well as for the organization. So I think it need a realistic overhauling approach to health. The second, I guess, is the real operations of the business. I guess there are a lot of things which we have to come together and see how we can enable functioning of our business in these times. And I guess I do feel the digital transformation is going to be one of the key aspects. And I feel fortunate that we are at least able to have a conference call of this nature, because if this was not there, imagine what we would have been. So I think we should be feeling lucky about at least able to sit across like this on a conference call with net not impacting, so as of now not impacting, but yes, it itself is a blessing in disguise. So it's very important that the business operations needs to be reviewed in a much bigger fashion. The policies and procedures of the talent needs to be relooked at. But most important thing, when I was doing my set of reflection, I somehow feel that this is a time of people analytics. I guess when we started off the COVID situation, most of the time the way we managed COVID was the track the person, trace the person, and treat. I guess the same fundamental is applicable for us as an organization, where we track where our people are, because they are actually spreading and going back to their hometowns and locations, which is beyond the place of work. We need to trace them, whether we can provide them the kind of work that can be provided, and treat them is keep them engaged in these difficult times. So I somehow feel that it is going to challenge us for the next 6 months to a year, and I feel we do not have a clear answer of how do we solve this. But I feel we might have to look at an immediate to short-term plan and evolve it into a medium to long-term plan as things take shape.
Thanks, Jimmy. So he will stay for a while. I mean, and then we should be more prepared. So I think that's going to be a good conversation throughout the next few minutes. From what the thoughts that you were sharing on health, Della, you manage such a large organization, and I mean, we all have such huge workforce, right? There's a lot of uncertainty in the new normal that has created more anxiety. Let it be finances or let it be work-life balance. You know, the lines have got so much blurred. Family health, job security, our lifestyles. So stress is normal response for these type of situations. Do we think the situation has raised the serious concern around managing stress and promoting mental, physical, and social well-being? What would be your thoughts? What are we doing as large organizations to address just the mental, physical, and social well-being of our workforces? And Jimmy or Saurabh, I would like to hear your thoughts also on this question, but we'll go with Delina first.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody, and thank you, CII, for giving us this platform to discuss a very, very important issue about talent and people. I think plenty of emphasis has been given to human resources over the last 5 months, more so than what we would have ordinarily had. So thanks for this platform. Kranti, yes, you're absolutely right. And I think Jimmy echoed a little bit of that when he opened with health. And I think if I can maybe step back a little bit from your question, the first thing is obviously the buzzwords, if you will, have been resilience, have been agility, have been flexibility, etc., etc. We've heard them over and over in different webinars. However, I think once the immediate uh, craziness of the first few weeks settled down, I think that is when, at least for us as an organization with thousands of people spread across 4 or 5 different cities, I think what we immediately needed to do is pivot to a slightly softer job responsibility that we had, and that was of compassion, that was of empathy, that was of when we are going ahead and talking to somebody, what is that person really going through in their circumstances? We didn't know at the time whether they had the internet or whether they had family or young children at home. So I think one of the learnings that my whole department, starting with me, have had to do is, it's one thing to show compassion and empathy when you're in the office and the expectation from the employee is, now you're at work, so leave your problems at the door and come. But they can't do that anymore. The problems, you're here in your home and you're working, and your child may come running into the office, into your seating space. So we did need to quickly adapt our conversations, adapt our methodologies, adapt a time that we may even want to speak to the employee to take into consideration some of these. And I think that has been a big tremendous push that our team has been able to give. I think that was one of the main things. The second thing, which we very consciously practiced, given that we are no longer in an office environment where we can simply walk over and check in with somebody and open the door and say, hey, hi, how are you doing? So we've learned in the first few months that these check-ins now need to be very deliberate. So, we can't sit and wait for the employee to come to us only because they'll only come to us when there's a problem. So we've actually had some active check-ins, hey, how are you doing? Is everything all right? How's your team doing? So those have been some measures. And lastly, I think huge emphasis for every organization has been on mental health, has been on managing stress and anxiety. I can go into that in a little bit detail with regard to what DNEG has done for its employees, but I'd let the other people respond to your questions before I do that.
Okay, thanks for sharing, Dana. I think there were some great thoughts there. We will come back to you specifically, so that I would. The reason we want to spend more time on the well-being, physical, social, and mental well-being, is because I think this is the highest need of the hour, either for the organization or even for the employees. So we will, I think, reflect a little more on this question. Before that, Saurabh, do you want to add how did you establish work from home so quickly, and what are your measures to have connect with your employees? What are you doing in this area?
Well, I think it's a really challenging time, and it's a unprecedented time because usually one country has a problem and then there's a trickle down effect. But here, everyone simultaneously has had a problem and have had to deal with it. So it's been a complete shutdown. So I think the challenge was that we still had to get as much done and keep as much moving and not come to a standstill. And so, like everyone else, we kind of made a system to work from home and deployed it. But what's really, really interesting is that once we are over this phase and this challenge, there's so many things that we have learned and that we are not able to see now because we're in the thick of things. But when things die down, there will be a lot of opportunities to create a work-life balance for people to come do a certain amount of days at home, certain amount at work, reduce commuting time, and so there is a lot that we will be able to fine tune in the future. As far as keeping people's health, that was our primary concern, and we did multiple things. I think we created support groups, so that people could reach out and we could proactively reach out to them and reassure everyone and check on them and just allow them to get little settled because the way of life had completely changed in just a few days. Also, we had addresses by the CEO and the management and HR to kind of tell people how to guide them, how to stay safe. If there were people who were in PGs and didn't have access to a kitchen, then could people contribute, send food, send supplies? So just kind of creating a whole community vibe so that people did not feel isolated and alone. And I think that's really important, is for people to know that there is someone there, and if they feel that there is someone there and they're not alone and help will be provided and can be provided, it creates a lot more harmony and a lot more peace within the employees. So just connecting people and letting them know that if they needed anything, whether it's medicine, food, someone to talk to, or just telling them how to take care of themselves and not go out, and these are the things to follow, what are the rumors that are not true. So keeping all of that in check was really, really important.
Yeah, interesting, Saurabh. Thanks. Morris, I think I would like you to share your thoughts as well. So, Saurabh, Della, Jimmy, they are high from VFX, right? And probably low on technology, and Autodesk is high on technology. So, how do you find this? Like, is this an opportunity for Autodesk to work with large workforces? And what are you doing in this direction apart from the education piece? Is there any new concept coming out? Shotgun is going to be treated differently. So what's happening in the production services that you would be working on?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd actually like to iterate the point that was made about employee health. I think we had the same things as we had to virtualize our workplace. We have 10,000 people across over 100 countries that basically we had to virtualize. Some are in China, some are in India, some are they're all around the world, each country with different levels of impact. I think the points that made were very relevant about the communication and the support. People are often very isolated and lonely in these times, and so we a large part of it was the infrastructure we put in. Now we were at an advantage because we'd already virtualized a lot of our processes prior to the crisis hitting, just because we have a lot of engineers who code from home or already work remotely. We had a lot of like online systems, things that we have online systems like Workday, Glint for employee engagement, for managing rewards and recognition. And so we were able to leverage a lot of online systems that made it easier to manage these. We didn't have to implement them; they were already there. And I think the lessons learned about in this is that how important those systems can be. These online systems that allow people to collaborate and to work, whether it's managing things from an HR perspective or actually managing the work they do themselves. And so to that point, then how do we transfer the lessons we are learning as a company to benefit our customers across the different industries we serve, which is not just media and entertainment, but architecture, engineering, construction, heavily impacted, construction massively impacted, lots of shutdowns there, manufacturing, which is the other big area of business, of our CAD business. And a large part of it is, how do we accelerate our plans for, cloud collaboration? And so we are, our CEO committed to invest quite heavily in our cloud platforms as we go forward, because we see these as becoming much more important in this future world. The future world is it's not all going to be cloud, but being able to have that dynamic that was mentioned earlier, where people can be working from home or working from the office, and it's going to become a lot more fluid in the future. We won't go back to exactly as things were before, and they won't stay exactly as they are now. It'll be some kind of hybrid work environment, but we will require technology to help solve that, and we will require technologies both in terms of how we manage processes internally, which is our HR processes, but also how we help customers manage their production workflows, whether it's in the media and entertainment space, whether it's in movies or games. And so, yes, we are investing in those platforms. We'll be accelerating a lot of our plans that we have there. These are all areas we were already researching, but now we see it's really interesting that the crisis is really showing us much more tangibly what is needed than we knew. It was a lot more theoretical before than it is now. So that's been an interesting experience.
Quite interesting, Morris. I think you'll have to be on mute. I think 10,000 employees over 100 countries, it's impressive. And, I can imagine the amount of collaboration and connect one would have to bring in during these times. Jimmy, would you like to share what Technicolor is doing with respect to employees' social, mental, and physical well-being? Do you have any specifics to share?
Yes. I guess what COVID has done to us is that it has brought us back to fundamentals and basics. When the whole issue of COVID came in, and this is one of those industries which is predominantly and I think only working from office, and work from home was never in dreams that we could do because of confidentiality reasons. But it has brought in a quite a big amount of change in the way we function. It has become so first few months has been more to stabilize ourselves at the fundamental level, try to ensure that people have systems and systems are deployed. And interestingly, some of the strengths of a sudden change is that it also has some positives, and we could see a certain growth in productivity in people, because they're getting into an environment which is very comfortable in many ways. So we did see that a lot of people were able to stretch beyond. They get the flexibility. They don't have to travel as much distance as they want to. That all helped them increase productivity. And the issues then continued, and the lockdown continued, and then the real pressure started building in. And as an organization, it became imperative that we need to start taking measures to do it. Now, the easiest thing, I think in India, it continues to be a big taboo when it comes to employee, wellness and at least especially the mental well-being. They do not want to be seeing themselves or anybody else seeing them in the way it needs to be. So what is important is the environment an employee gets to perform his job. I guess if you look at it the way we have been born and brought up, we never had a separate study room or a separate work room. This particular situation has actually compelled us to create a separate workspace within home. So the easiest thing to challenge it, but I would say we just embrace it and try to find their own ways to do it. The other thing is that family would be now going to be in the background and part of different work engagements. We need to start accepting that too. There's nothing wrong in that, because whatever said and done, a man going from home to office and office to home, he or she is taking the whole thing together, because you can't decouple it as we feel it is. And now the gap has further shortened. So I guess the employee first should start embracing that the family will be part of some part of the work that they do, and the organization should also accept that the family will be part of it, and let's embrace it. And I think let's further reduce the gap, because I do feel in the kind of dynamic industry that we cater to, families still have a very big role to play.
Yeah.
So I guess this could be a great opportunity for us to bridge that gap and invite family to be part of the whole business, so that in times where the employee feels disengaged, the family can bring the employee back to normal. So I guess that's one area we are focusing on quite extensively, to ensure that we do not try to decouple it as we think we should, because this is a change which may not go down well, but I think acceptance will make it easier. The other thing is, of course, we have a comprehensive employee wellness plan, and we regularly keep educating people of what they should do in this period. We are doing sessions on managing simple things on a day-to-day basis, which can keep them involved and engaged. But I also feel that one of the things which is important and that we are encouraging at Technicolor quite extensively is peer-to-peer connect. Whatever said and done, the manager will never be able to influence, because the manager is always seen as a person who is going to be asking about where is my task lying and are you going to finish the job or not. So keeping that perspective in mind, it's imperative that the relationship of a peer to peer is much higher. And if we are able to establish that, because it is very important that a person can easily become isolated in the whole engagement. But if we create more platforms for peer-to-peer contact, first thing, it can be highly informal in nature. It enables that engagement. Second, they are able to collaborate as it needs to. Because we are in a working organization, bringing people together is easier. But when you're in virtual, bringing people together is difficult. And there are possibilities, and there's an easier thing to do is to get isolated. So how do we ensure that the peer-to-peer contact becomes much stronger? So I guess what we'll be looking at, and more from a technical standpoint, is that we should not overcomplicate or overdo stuff, because people are anyway not easy to adapt to change, and this change already has pushed them quite much. Now, if you're going to be overwhelming them with many things, I guess it is going to backfire. I guess we need to find avenues to simplify those engagements, so that the sense of the emotional well-being when they are functioning in and around work or in and around family is the best. And we find those acceptance being given to them, and we do make those small baby steps in engagement, because we really do not know how this will evolve. There's a possibility that we have the vaccine and everything is back to normal from Jan, and we're back to office. And we might potentially go back to our older ways without even blinking of an eye. They'll say, okay, this is 1 year, we want to just uninstall from our life and just move on to 2021. I guess that might also happen. So it's imperative that we not overdo it, but take those baby simple step which make them feel a sense of togetherness, that they are all together. Managers do have a role to play. Leaders do have a role to play, to keep them updated about what the organization is doing in these times. And manager needs to be quite empathetic and reassuring that we all are in this together. It's not an issue only with one person, and we need to might have to do over and beyond that we usually do. Maybe over communication is going to be an important aspect as part of it, but we need to do that. But touch upon the simpler things which people can relate to than probably complicating. And nowadays when I go through any of the HR articles, I think there's a bombardment of post-COVID how the world should actually function. And I personally feel that they are actually deriving what the future would be, which something which they themselves are not aware about. So I guess please stay away from too much of knowledge, because you really do not know how it is. Please use your common sense and intelligence in managing the day-to-day transaction, per se. And I think that will help us sail through.
Thanks, Jimmy. I think quite a lot of thoughts and best practices I think that Technicolor is following. From the conversation that we started earlier, like there is a very thin line, right? You touched upon, Jimmy, you touched upon productivity has kind of increased because I think we have given them there is a flexible working hours. So Della, this question probably I'll point it to you in terms of thinning, basically blurred lines between working from home and actually managing home. Um, what would you say about that? Like, are you thinking that work-life balance is now going to get affected, or it's just that we are overworking ourselves because it's very new and initial stages, or do you see that there's going to be a pattern going forward?
Sure. So actually, I want to be able to answer that taking into consideration three pillars, if you want to call them that. One is technology, one is the communication side of it, and the third is inclusion. So if I go back to something that Maurice was saying, I actually don't feel that technology right now is very removed from what HR is doing. Because in many, many ways, if it wasn't for technology and if it wasn't for digital, we would not be able to reach out to our people the way we are. So even if it's our engagement programs, or if it's whether we've been able to do something on yoga, or whether we've been able to do something on mental health, and actually provide access to our employees to certified counselors or psychologists if they need, without any concern or fear of what's going to be spoken and how is it going to be spoken. I think that has helped a lot, technology. I don't think we would be having this discussion if it wasn't for the technology piece. The second piece, I think, is which has been really, really pivotal to what we've been able to do, is inclusion. So when I say inclusion, it could be something as basic as running a survey to just see where people are at, how are they doing, do they have the resources required, do they have the time required, and really taking their inputs on what can we do for them. And I think that the ability to accept some of the things that the department may want to do or the organization may want to do exponentially rises when the individual feels that, yes, my thoughts have been taken into consideration, my opinion has been taken into consideration. So whether it is anything to do with engagement, whether it is to do with how we work, whether it is to do with the kind of technology they have, we've been able to bring in a lot of inclusion, which has helped us to partner with our employees. And frankly, if you ask me, I think the really surprising outcome, or I shouldn't say surprising, but the very positive outcome has happened is now we have employees who come to us offering flexibility. So they may come back and say, you know what, my bandwidth goes down by 10 in the morning, but I'm okay to come, start 2 hours early and then maybe take a break at 10 o'clock so that I can finish my function. And this is not something that we imposed. This is not something that we had in a written down policy. But we've seen that by partnering, we've had individuals come back to us and say, yeah, great. Can I do this? Can I start at 5? I've had working mothers who have basically said, you know what, I need to take a little bit of break around dinner time. I need to prepare this. I need to do this, but I'll log back in after I put my kids to sleep. And this is not something we had to do. This is partnering. So I think inclusion and partnering has been a really important step in what we've been able to do. And thirdly is communication. So I think, frankly, if you ask me, I think we would rather over communicate than under communicate, especially in this environment where people don't know what's going on in the organization. People don't have, corridor conversations or breaks for tea and smoke breaks and things like that. So we have felt and we've seen quite a bit of success in over communicating and getting people to reach back out to us in case something or the other needs to be done. How do we see this moving forward, and how do we see the blurred lines being able to unblur, if at all? I think that's an evolving process. I think that is organic. From where we started in April and May to where we are now, no doubt, there may be certain exigencies of projects, there may be certain exigencies which are health related exigencies, but I think that we've now, and I'd like to think that all organizations have now settled in a certain functional way. It may not be optimal, and we need to build upon everything we did, which we were pushed to do in the first few months, and now reflect back and see, okay, so, oh, we accomplished this, we accomplished this. How do we now capitalize on everything that we've got and then come out with a policy which is a more sustainable policy going forward, whether it's 2021 or whether it is flexible working or whether it is any of the policies that traditionally we would have never seen in the VFX industry. So my view is that is a constant, it's an evolution. And yes, there are buzzwords in HR forums, but my view is, I think the value in all those forums is you hear a lot, then you take what works for you and you customize that and you package that for what is unique to your organization and what is unique to your employees. And that is the value that you can give back to your employees. And that is something that we're striving for at DNET.
Lovely, right? I think there's so we were I think already doing all of this, but it's taken a lot of emphasis due to the times that we are in, and I'm so glad you're able to share. And I'm sure there are a lot of employees hearing this conversation, and a lot of small companies also hearing this conversation too. They can also probably adapt whatever we're doing. So thanks for sharing your thoughts, Delna. Saurabh, I know you manage the business piece, and generally when we are doing reviews and we are doing conversations with our artists and workforce, right? 60% is non-verbal communication, body language. How do you see how we've been able to overcome that limitation, considering we all are working from home? Have you seen any impact, or do you think you've been able to manage and it's been seamless?
See, I think initially you all feel all of these questions do arise because it's a new way of working, and adapting to something new is always painful. But once you do adapt to it, you kind of figure out, okay, there are, even on communicating via video call, you understand tone, you are able to see expression. And you know what, we've been doing this for a long time. Most of our clients are in different parts of the world, and we get into video call and we understand subtleties of their feedback, when they are pleased, when they're not pleased, when something is bothering them. So we've had this experience for a very, very long time. And now that we are doing it internally, and I think it's taken us a month or so to kind of adapt to this new way. But once we've kind of accepted it and made the shift, it's not such a big problem. I think we're still being able to do things well. I also agreed with so many points that Delna just said, and one of them was about flexibility and the ability to do stuff at your own time. And we have seen so many artists saying that, you know what, I'm a night person, let me work at night, and they work at night. And then there are people who say, you know what, I want to finish my work by 12 in the afternoon, and they work. And it's great for people to have this flexibility based on their life. And you know, for the first 1 to 2 months, because everything was so new and we were figuring things out, we ended up working, all of us, like till like 15 hours, 16 hours, 17 hours. But now that systems are put in place and they're being refined, the need to do that is not there. And we need to talk to people and say, you know what, enjoy the lunch with your child or with your mother. Take that break. You had to make a physical shift between your home and your office. Make a mental shift. Just because you're at home, that doesn't mean that you keep on sitting. You do your work, spend your time with your family. I mean, it's a great thing. You are able to have lunch with your child, or if you have to attend to something, do that. It's not a problem. And we need to encourage people to be able to make a mental disconnect and take the advantages of not wasting an hour to 2 hours traveling, being at home, and tell them to enjoy that and do work, and help them to transition to being able to work from home, and yet have a demarcation between what's work and enjoy their personal lives and the perks of being at home.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thanks, Saurabh. I think quite interesting thoughts there. What's stemming out of this conversation, and I think I will to Morris, is the readiness of our managers, right? When he said 10,000 people, 100 countries, and this whole conversation of over communicating, technology, inclusion, communication. I think what's my next question for Morris would be, how are we supporting and preparing our managers? I mean, in your organizations, how are you all supporting and preparing your managers to adapt to this new phase of life and manage their teams remotely? Not everybody was ready for this, right? So, how are we engaging with our managers? Morris?
Boris? Yeah, that's a very good question, and I actually think it connects something with Saurabh was referring to. The first thing we noticed when it was we noticed two very interesting things. The first thing we noticed was productivity went up, which was mentioned before, and the second thing we noticed was that this phenomenon where if you give people the flexibility, if you encourage this inclusion, then you get this high degree of adaptability, and you need to have flexibility to manage that. And so we rolled out a bunch of platforms, basically educational platforms in turn, but a series of we call them sprints. They're like these sessions where we bring senior managers together to discuss like what's the impact on decision making, in an organization in this new environment. We look at very specific topics. Courage, like how does courage manifest itself in terms of feedback and participation? So it's sometimes easier, sometimes harder to do these things online. And we work through these work groups where we discuss kind of the best practices, and it typically starts at CEO staff and then kind of goes down through the organization as a way of basically training managers to deal with the new reality of the environment. We also instituted programs which actually cause people to actually take those breaks, because we realized that some people are good at taking breaks, some people are not. So we integrate some policies, like we have mandated days off, like no one's working this day. So there's no email, so you have a quiet time. We have a policy where it's stated that parents with children can take a certain number of days of working hours. We have the typical 40-hour week. They don't have to work 40 hours. There's like 36, 34 hours, and 6 hours can be used for childcare things that at your discretion. Things like budget for buying office. $500 budget for every employee to buy things they need for the home office. 45-minute maximum on a meeting. Yeah. So, and then the next 15 minutes of downtime. So you institute some policies. There's flexibility. Obviously, people can do shorter and longer, but we institute at least some ground rules for managers about how they manage their meetings, what the kind of things is considered acceptable and unacceptable. We also have, we rolled out various types of initiatives for the whole social, like how do you engage with the teams, because there's this aspect of loneliness, as we said before, and the important thing, which actually I forgot who mentioned it, but we're talking about peer-to-peer is as important as manager-to-peer, and so how do you encourage your peer-to-peer connection within your teams through social activities online, such a thing as so for example, and things where you can have like what we call brown bags, and you basically say, we have, we use these food delivery services to basically deliver a meal to everyone, and they have lunch together online. Before we'd all go to a conference room and bring the beers and pizzas and do this, and but now in the virtual environment, how do you do these kind of things? So how do you translate some of these social activities that we used to do into virtual? We just had a team tour of like Versailles online, and another group did a visit to a farm, and where they basically the team got together and they had a virtual event online that was like a bit more of a social event, nothing to do with work. So yeah, but ultimately a lot of it is kind of what we would call cascading training that comes from from senior, basically our HR team leadership puts together the programs, we kind of test it out with C-level staff, and then cascade it down through the organization about the best practices of how to manage in times of change. And what was really interesting was we use a system called Glint that we've been using for several years that measures our employee engagement. It went up during this cycle. Actually, employee engagement went up, which we were not expecting when we got the results in. Like we know we were trying hard, but we didn't actually expect the results to go up.
Amazing. Morris, I think Autodesk, whatever is doing, this great initiatives right here. We have a lot of HR listeners, and we have a lot of companies listening into this. I think we should look at adapting some of the policies and processes that you kind of put in place, which will work well for our employees. I would like, I think I recognize the time. We probably have about 7 or 8 minutes. Um, Anybody, I mean, this next one can be for anyone, whoever wants to pick up this question. What is the biggest takeaway for the future for an employee? I mean, we have a lot of employees listening into this conversation. So, what would you be suggesting for an employee? Anyone can take this.
I can start.
Sure.
I think for the employee, and I think this is more not really only employee. I think this is general for all of us. I think the first thing that I would say for the employee is be willing to adapt. There is plenty that looks insurmountable. There is plenty that looks very, very challenging. There is plenty that looks at the onset impossible. But if you provide us with a little window of being willing to adapt, the organization can take the next steps forward, the next 10 steps forward to provide for that environment, to provide for that flexibility. So I think the takeaway for the employees, I think, given that this is not challenged only our industry, Jimmy said that in the beginning, right? We were an industry that couldn't think of working from home.
Yeah.
But we've fast forwarded and fast tracked any possible work from home projects to make that happen in a matter of weeks. So anything is possible, literally. So
Yeah.
I think if the employees are open to adapt and open to change, of course, so do the organizations need to be. I think we will be well on our way to a very, very successful post-COVID scenario.
Lovely, lovely thoughts, Della. Saurabh, Jimmy, would you like to
Yeah,
add?
I think the take for there should be a take for employees and employers as well, and I think the first take should be that this is a tough situation, but it's just a tough situation. It's not going to last. Things are going to change. Maybe technology will change, the setting will change, but the purpose will still remain. The need to create content, the need to consume content, the need for the industry is going to be there. So it's a small setback which is going to cause us short-term pain, but once we get over it, there'll be so many insights. Like Delna said, we could not imagine working from home. It
Yeah.
was something that you could not imagine, and this was a rule created by experts at a point where it was relevant. But maybe
True.
today we see that everyone's been working from home for 6 months, and there hasn't been touch wood many data leaks, which means that people are generally good, and you don't have to control them. You
True.
have to make them partners, and you have to and include them. And once you do that, things will be great. And I think as an organization, that what is a big takeaway is that we should constantly be looking at what we set as standards and see whether they are relevant today or whether they need to be changed to make a better work life existence for us and everyone working within the industries, because what may have been relevant in the past may actually not be relevant, and we can find better ways of working and allowing people to get a better work life balance, a better mental health, and more opportunities and flexibilities. And I think that's a key takeaway, and it's also great for the environment. And I just think that if we are really honest to everyone, we are inclusive, and we genuinely care, it will make a better environment, because at the end of the day, that's the three things that everyone needs. And I hope we do not go back to the way we existed, and we make certain changes that will help everyone and make life better.
Thank you, Saurav.
From
Jimmy, you have a minute. You want
yes,
to add something?
yes. I would say that one of the things which has happened with COVID is that there is more time at disposal. Uh, so for employees, the time that they've got extra, use that or teach themselves to learn. Because I guess if you really have to adapt and be more resilient in the way things are, you will have to create a mindset of learning, because a lot of changes are going to come by and your ability to learn is going to make a lot of difference.
Hmm.
And one thing which COVID definitely has taught us that, and maybe it has broken a lot of myth in our mind, that if it really wants, the whole world can change everything at one given point in time. So it means we may not be exactly doing. So for me, at times, it's not potentially the new normal, but maybe the next normal that we would be looking forward to. So I would encourage also employees that these changing times might bring complexity in the way they think. Please talk, engage with people, reach out for help and support. Everybody is in this together, so they should not feel left out. The more they communicate, the better. Organizations should also take the equal responsibility towards it.
True. Absolutely true. I think I would like to really sum up this conversation. Unfortunately, we needed to wrap this up 5 minutes before our session time because we have our minister, Shri Jagdish ji. He will be speaking next on large and medium scale. So I think we'll have to make space for him. I would have loved to take questions though. But I think if I have to wrap up this session, I think we all have said that we need to, everyone, I mean, be it employee or be it employer, compassion and empathy has to be both sides. It can't be one directional, is what I heard from you guys. It's a very big takeaway and a great takeaway, I think, from today's session. Willing to adapt, right? I think that becomes the second very important thing during these times. I think we all have to be very open-minded. There are a lot of challenges, there are multiple opportunities. I hear from you guys today, and partnership and inclusion with the employee and organization. It's again both ways, right? All these conversations are just both ways, and it's not either an employee or an employer. It's kind of going both way. And most important piece that I heard from you guys, which we will do more and more, is more communicating. Rather than communicating less, we will over communicate, because that's what is the need of the hour looks like, right? So I would really like to thank you guys. I mean, this session was absolutely important in times like these. Everybody wants to hear what the talent is saying. um, talent wants us to the expectation from talent is really high, right? It's people related. So Delna, thank you so much. Saurabh, Jimmy, Morris, I can't thank you guys enough to participate in this session today and giving us your thoughts. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
having us.
Thank you.
Having us.
Yes, thank you for
Thanks for
having us.
having us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Excellent. Thanks so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so much, panelists. This was indeed a very interesting session. Thank you, Kranti, for moderating it so well. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you all.